Hey everybody, good morning.
Good morning.
It is Sunday morning with
Yes, it
Dan and
is.
Angela.
Yay.
And we're going to be talking about, as what we talk about every Sunday morning, we're going to be talking about spiritual discoveries and powerful discoveries, discoveries that change our life in ways that we've never could have imagined. And one of the guys that have changed both Angela and my life is Dr. David R. Hawkins from Sedona. And we know he passed in 2012. And what a wonderful man, just filled with humility. And he went on a search, for consciousness. He actually has I think the Institute for Spiritual Consciousness Research or something.
Oh, wow.
He's world renowned, and he's written many books. You can find him on veritaspublishing.com. Veritas, Vertis.
No, Veritas.
Yes, Veritas Publishing, and you can find all his information, all his books, and the scale of consciousness that everybody knows about.
Let's talk about the names of the books one more time.
Well, there's a lot of them.
Yeah, I know, but
Yeah,
some of them, the eye of the eye,
yeah. Power versus force, eye of the eye,
transcending levels of consciousness.
devotional non-duality. It goes on and on, but
Yeah.
there's no sense in talking about too many of them unless you kind of understand some of the earlier ones, because he builds on an idea of surrender and powerful change that we could never expect. But we want to talk today about his book, Power versus Force, as you see up on the very top there. And it comes in that cover now, but it used to come like in this cover. This was one of them, Power versus Force, the hidden determinants of human behavior. And boy, they are hidden. They're very hidden. Well, out of this book, and Dr. Wayne Dyer says perhaps one of the most important and significant books I've ever read in the past few years.
Wow.
That's pretty powerful
That
for
is.
Dr. Wayne Dyer to say that.
Wow.
And so many others have quoted. He's been on Oprah. He's been on all these different things, but he was just a very humble man. I didn't feel like he liked the limelight. He didn't want to be like known as the guru. He used to
No.
say, if you see the guru, shoot him or run the other way
Kill
when
the
you
Buddha, right?
yeah, kill the Buddha. And in his discoveries, he created this map of consciousness, which is really consciousness. I call it, Angela probably call it, consciousness in a nutshell. It's like a whole spectrum of ways to be in the world. And the reason I came across this book, Power versus Force, is because I, like Angela and myself, have came out of fundamentalist control, high control religions. I was a Jehovah's Witness 40 years, and Angela was in the Worldwide Church of God, amongst other things. And we hear the phone ringing in there.
I know it's irritating because I even know who it is. Oh dear.
And so anyway, long story short, we felt like we had to catch up. We had to catch up with life. We felt like we were far behind. When you come out of a man-made religion, right? And there's a lot of high control. You're not taught to think for yourself. You're taught to follow these men regardless, just blind faith, just trust in them that they hear better than you do, which is Watchtower. They're like, you better follow us like your life depends on it, because it does. We were placed over you.
For me, the Worldwide Church of God, and there's many others.
Yes.
It's a cult. That's a cult I grew up in.
Yes. So when we came out of these religions, when we said, wait a minute, there's something wrong. This is a very narrow point of view, this idea that only these 8 men are Angela's people, these few men.
The people that follow the truth,
right? Have the idea, Herbert W. Armstrong, he's the one God spoke to, or Charles Taze Russell or Rutherford or whatever. These are the men that heard God, and everyone follows down like a pyramid.
Could be Joseph Smith or whoever.
Yeah, Joseph Smith, Mary Baker Eddy.
You name it.
That's funny because we thought, me and Angela, we came out of these religions, but it was funny when we went into Mary Baker Eddy's church. It was very similar, wasn't it?
Oh yeah.
It was like, you don't say nothing in that church but what they've quoted. In fact, when they go up front, there's no like leader, which is kind of cool. But they only read out of her literature. Let's see what Mary Baker Eddy has to say today. And this stuff was written years ago.
How about Seventh-day Adventists?
Yeah.
Who's their leader again, Dan?
Ellen White.
Ellen White.
Ellen White.
Yep, and they read her stuff like it's the Bible.
Yeah,
You know?
and that's it. It's just the scope of their mind. It's the scope of, in fact, we were invited to a guy's house who was a Mary Baker Eddy. He was kind of higher up and he had this huge mansion. And the ladies like, go out back on the deck and talk to Mr. So-and-so. And we went out there and we're looking all over all of Boise, and he was real proud of his estate. And I started talking, and he questioned me. And he said, "Sir, may I correct your speaking?" And he said, "We say it like this. This is how Mary Baker Eddy says it." And I went like, "Whoa!" And I asked him, "Do you know about unity?" "No, never heard of it." "Do you know about science of mind?" "No, never heard of it." Have you? It was like they were in that box. And so me and Angela have seen all these boxes through our studies, there's all sorts of boxes. But the reason we looked at this book, Power versus Force, was because when we got out of these religions, it felt like we had some time to catch up. We wanted to catch up with our life, right?
Yeah.
It's like, for me, everybody was driving nice cars, everybody was living in nice homes, everybody had wonderful educations, everybody had so much going on.
Except me, right?
Yeah, except me. And we were like, hell, we got to catch up. So, we entered, some New Thought churches and some things that were really cool. But honestly, it was like a smorgasbord. If you ever been to a New Thought church, they believe in drawing information from multiple sources. Like if you go to Science of Mind, when they start their church, they might quote out of the Bible, then they'll quote out of Paramahansa Yogananda, then they'll quote out of Hinduism or whatever, or Ernest Holmes, right? And so they draw from all these things. So when you go into that book room, it's filled, completely filled with a million ideas on pathways to go, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like a smorgasbord. Do you want to go down to Buddhism, the surrendered state? Do you want to go down to Hinduism? Do you want to go down the affirmations, make it happen, make it happen, make it happen? Do you want to go down this way? It's so many mysticism. It goes on and on. Paramahansa.
Jewels in all of
There's
them.
jewels
That's the interesting
in all of
part.
them, but you can get in there and go, holy shit, this is overwhelming. I don't know, I don't know which way to.
And it's overpowering too.
Yes.
It's force. Like this book's about power versus force.
Yeah. So
it's kind of force.
It is.
It's control. But force in this book means force and control. And power in that word means power just is. It's pure God.
Yeah.
And it's love. It's pure love, pure God. It's that's the power. That's where the real power is, and the pure love. And love of self, love of life, love of God, love of mankind. And force is, the opposite, really. It's trying to force and push and shove and have your way, kind of animalistic almost.
Yeah, and it can also be, do this meditation this way. This is the only way you can do it. You've got to sit there for an hour, or you've got to do mantras, and here's how we do it. I remember Angela got into Paramahansa Yogananda, some of his advanced teachings, and it was like every week there were lessons,
And every week there was an added thing you have to do.
Yeah, you need to do this now.
I'm like, I can't even live my life now. I have to go to work. I can't just, spend my whole day doing all these practices like maybe his students were doing. I can't do that. That's not where I'm at in life right now. I have to work. It was really interesting, and I felt overwhelmed.
Yeah, and overwhelmed. And again, it came back to, like Angela said, it was kind of pushing, right? If I do this, then I'll get this.
Yes.
If I work real hard, I'll be rich. If I work real hard, and meditate and do this and keep my hands clasped. And then one teacher says, keep your hands like this. And another one says, like, have your hands up with your thumbs like this. And there's all these
breathing techniques and stuff to reach God, the divine maker connection. I don't know, it works in a way.
It's pushing. And I remember when we were in Science of Mind, I wanted to get back some of that, what the Lokes have eaten. I wanted to get back some of that prosperity I lost. I lost 40 years. I didn't really lose. It was just my pathway. I was indoctrinated, but I felt like 40 years of my life was wasted following 8 men that I never met. And so anyway, when I broke out of that, I wanted to catch up. So my first stop off was like a Science of Mind. It was like, hey, we have the formula. it was a mind treatment, right? If you just know you're connected to God, know you can't be separate, do your affirmations, thanksgiving, and release. It was like a 5-step treatment. And if you would do this, it was like writing a prescription to heaven. Like if I put it this way, if I know I'm connected, if I know this affirmation, thanksgiving, release, then I could have anything I wanted. So as I did that, I realized that it wasn't happening. I
No,
wasn't on the Oprah show, you
no,
know what I
not
mean?
just for Dan, but most everybody in there.
Yeah, everybody was, it was a great talk.
Oh,
It
yeah,
felt wonderful.
right,
It feels wonderful to know that you're not junk after you've been told you're junk and you're
right.
wretched and you're this. So when you went into this church, you were told you were wonderful and
Which is
magnificent and
healing.
an idea in the mind of God. And before you were born, he had an intention for you to shine in a unique way, like unlike anybody else. And you were called to this place. And so that was wonderful. But this pushing, like Angela said, this driving, I'm going to do these affirmations till the skies rain down $100 bills. You know, that's what I thought, or the trees were going to be filled. I was going to walk out and see a tree growing money on it, you know?
Yeah, you know what's funny, Dan? You did have that one period of time though where you did pace and speak and affirm and speak what is the truth, and
Yes.
everything changed. So
Yes.
maybe everybody in there wasn't doing it quite right because you did it to the point where everything moved.
Yes. Well,
And
there was a consciousness about it. Like yes, I wanted those things, but what I didn't know was, like first things first. Like yes, okay, like say you want to be a millionaire, right? Well, there's some things you got to put in place in order for you to be a millionaire, right? There's some things that got to be put into place. You've got to maybe have a product, to come up with a product, or study under someone who's a millionaire. You've got to follow some of his ways, affiliate marketing, whatever, but you got to do some things, right? And so here we were in this church affirming and believing we were going to do something magnificent. For me, it was write a book, at the time. But then it was going to be the quick route. I was going to go on Oprah or some big show, and I was going to make my millions and retire, right? And so what was interesting was there had to be more things in place. Now, Hawkins in his book talks about my will, Dan's will, the little will, right, as being very low. It's not very powerful. It's my will be done. I forget. I think it's under 200. My will. I think it's 150 or something, but it's low. It makes you go weak. My will. I want. Which means maybe I'm not grateful or I'm not, filled with
I
gratitude
just
for.
want what I want.
I just want what I want, and I'll get it anyway, right?
Yeah.
I'll push, I'll scrape, I'll do anything to get it.
Even screw God, I'm just going to find my way without God. I don't
Yes.
need him. I can find my way.
Yes. So one of the teachings in his book was surrender, but it was surrender to God's will be done. Not Dan's will be done, but God's will be done. But God's will is my will, right? God is part of me, right? God created me in the womb. He says, I created you in the womb. I knitted you together in the womb. Where you stand is holy ground. I and the Father are one. I'm closer than your breath. I mean, there's all sorts of scriptures that show we could never really be out of union. We could never really be out of divine union. And so, what was I going to say about that? So I soaked into, God's will be done. So what I did was I did my affirmations, and I did some powerful affirmations walking, but God led me to a monastery. And I thought, why in the hell am I going to a monastery? Because it was time to shut up. It was time to, okay, I heard you, right? I heard your intention. I heard what you want. I heard you talk. I heard from your heart. You want to have a wife. You want to write a book. You want to do this. You want to do that. And so I surrendered. I went to the monastery, and Hawkins talks a little bit about the monastery. He was in the quiet for quite a while.
Well, I did a lot of quiet.
Yeah. And so I'm like, I don't like quiet. I don't like humility. I don't like stopping.
Don't like the word surrender.
Yeah, I don't like surrender. Humility was the big one for me. No. We got to push. We got to drive. And so obviously nothing was happening on the surface, but stuff was happening behind the scenes, the hidden determinants of human behavior, the hidden. So I made my request known to God, and then God, I feel like, through those affirmations, I think all heaven and earth were moving. I think everything was starting to move up there. I couldn't see it, right? I was like, I gave my prayer. God says, I already know your prayer before you ask it. So things were moving in the heavenlies. On the surface here, we're in 3D, we're in a third dimension. So things happen a little slower here, right? For things that kind of filter down. But things were happening. But what I needed before I needed anything was a wife. I needed a wife. I was sad. I was hurting. I was broken. I was alone. I I needed a helper. You know what I mean? And Angela needed a helper.
Now, this was before before the monastery day, though. This
Yes,
was just in your own living room.
yes. And see, I didn't really know that I needed that first. I just wanted what I want. So the heavenlies started putting things into place. Angela showed up in my life, right? I never expected that. I really didn't. I just surrendered. I said, God, I've been looking at all these wrong places. I've been doing all the wrong things. I've been trying to get my needs met in kind of gross ways and different ways. And, and it wasn't happening. So God gracefully, makes Angela and my paths cross in a very spiritual way. I probably won't go into all that, but he made our paths cross at a dealership, and she was in a training. I was in a training at John Elway. She was at another John Elway for Chrysler. I was in John Elway for GMC, and we both went to a training at the same time, and we met. And that's where we had lunch together, and that's where we had wonderful times together of talking and sharing. And Angela poured out her heart to me, and I listened and understood. And we had this friendship that went on for
And
about a
vice
year.
versa. Okay.
And through that, now the Lord says, Angela can type pretty fast, right? So you guys are going to write a book now, and it led. But anyway,
First to start a business, but
first
yeah,
we
later
started
on it
a
was fun.
business, and that was a miraculous thing, starting a business. And Angela knew a lot about business because her husband was in real estate, and they had to do a lot of marketing, a lot of promoting, a lot of business stuff. And so she became a master in that business area where she knew how to do flyers, she knew how to type right, how to spell right, how to put it out there right, and just what to do to bring in customers, which I didn't
Jen
know.
was good at marketing. You did a great, DVD. Of course, we call it something, yes,
Yeah.
CD.
So together, God knew that first, let's put you two together. Let's get some love going, because love is a powerful energy, isn't it?
It
It's
is. It
powerful.
makes you feel like you could do anything.
Yes.
Love is so powerful. Love, like I said, love is power.
Yes.
Yeah, for power is
Yes.
love. And so it's what drives everything. It really is.
It really is. And I want to say, I think in Hawkins' books, I think the scale might be in there. You could look, but I think the scale might be in the back of the book where it talks about this. We're going to go get some.
That's right.
Oh, okay. And so, like Angela said, the hidden determinants of human behavior. See, we have to get what it is that's sabotaging us. What is it that's holding us back? What is it that really makes things happen? And that's what I think we're all trying to figure out. What is it that really makes things happen? Like I said, we want to get back with the Lokes of Eden, but maybe I don't know exactly the pathway. Maybe I need a little help from on high. And so the surrender isn't giving up. A lot of people think, oh, surrender means giving up, like I did, but it means surrendering. I've said my piece. Now, God, show your piece, do your piece. So God's piece was, well, let me put it together for you. So he puts me and Angela together. We have that love. We feel that love. That friendship starts building into love. And then we start building this life together. And eventually we get married, have business. We do all sorts of stuff. Okay. But down here, down below 200, is where we force things. This is where we force things. This is where is like a drain.
Let me read some of those.
Yeah, read some of those.
Okay, so
Let me just say this.
yeah.
These are called attractor fields. Attractor fields are where we hang out, where we don't even know we're hanging out, right? Does a victim know he's a victim? A person that's telling his story, and you see him, and oh, come here, let me tell you my story. He's always waiting to tell somebody his story somewhere. He's always looking for a new
I'm
party,
the only one this has
a new
happened
gig.
to.
This destroyed my life, and it's going to be as bad as it can get. And I'm telling you, the worst victims you get, they actually fight each other. Victims actually fight each other for their story of
Who's
space.
got the better story?
Yeah.
Right.
If you tell someone their story that they were raped and maligned by by men and stuff. The next person, I was raped and maligned by 100 men and trafficked. And then the next person will like all the people in the world, the presidents and everybody did me, you know, and it goes on and on. But
We're not joking.
we're not joking. They compete for this space, and they even get angry at each other because someone's story's out doing it. That's when you're getting real sick.
Yeah.
But the point of it is, the point we were making is the hidden determinant of human behavior is that you don't know that that's running you. And there is a payoff to being a victim. The payoff
Yeah.
to
Hawkins
your
talks
flesh.
about this. There's
Yeah.
always a payoff.
Dr. Hawkins says, find out what the payoff is. So what is the payoff for being a victim? I'll tell
We're
you what
telling
it
your
is.
story over and over again.
The payoff is sympathy. And so when you tell your story, you get, oh, Angela, oh my God, that you poor girl, you've been through hell. I don't know how you're alive. Oh my God. Oh, you know, and so she goes to the next person and she goes, look, can I tell you my story? Oh yeah, this happened and that happened. Someone goes, oh, Angela, and it's women, it's men, it's groups, and you know, and so on and so forth. But what's happening is that sympathy is kind of the reward of that attractor field,
Which
right?
keeps it going.
And keeps you stuck. So Hawkins says, will you give up the reward of sympathy for something much greater? And you go, wow, there's something greater than me getting sympathy? There's something greater than me yelling at people in traffic? See, anger is another attractor field on there, isn't it?
It sure
Read
is.
some of those
Yeah,
attractor
that's
fields.
so
Now, these are lower attractor fields. These are fields of energy that people hang out in, and sometimes they're in them their whole life.
So I don't know if you can see this, but right here at the yellow point, the arrow starts going down, and everything above the yellow point is it's yellow, yeah, is an arrow going up, which means that everything below is actually a negative energy field. It's pulling your body down and weakening your body, and everything going up is you're on the way to God. It's almost like the prodigal son decided he's going to go home, right? And you start. So, but we all typically kind of go up and down. Sometimes, you know, in a given day, we can be down here in anger, and then we could be up here in, I don't know, willingness or you know, hopeful or feeling trustful, or so we could be in both of these things in one day. But the goal, once again, is
Where
to
are you
get
hanging
into,
out most of the time?
to get into the upper
If you're hanging out
realms.
here, if you're angry 90% of the time, you're stuck here. You might get a spike of this, you know what I mean? But if you keep coming back down to this gravity point, then you're here. If you're just spiking and going up here, but if you hang out up here where you're feeling pretty good most of the time, you're pretty graceful, you're pretty happy, you feel like life's done you good, you feel God is good, you know, then you're hanging out in other attractor fields.
Now, if you saw, shame is at the very bottom. Despising,
20.
miserable, shame, humiliation, elimination. You know, you just feel like you don't want to live anymore. And so this is 20. And then the next level up is 30. It's guilt, blame, destruction, evil, vindictive. I would add hateful. Next level, 50. Abdication. I have no idea what that means. Despair, apathy, hopeless, condemning. 50. So you could be condemning yourself or others, or in despair yourself, or feel apathy and hopelessness. 50. And they say if you live in any of those lower fields I just read very long at all, you will not survive for very long if you stay there. Then it moves up. At least you're starting to get healthier. If then you start moving into, believe it or not, into despondency, grief, regret, tragic, disdainful. You feel like everything's a tragedy. Everything, I regret that I did this. I'm despondent. I can't do anything about it. I'm stuck. It's a tragedy. And if you stick there very long, you won't do very well. You're not going to live very long.
You're probably going to die soon, or, you know, because it's just hopelessness, despair. What reason is there to be here, right? That's what it feels like. It's just drudgery. Every day's a drudgery.
Yeah, and then we've got fear. And the next level is 100. Fear, anxiety, withdrawal from society, withdrawal from yourself, withdrawal from life. You're frightened, frightening. And then punitive, it's pickiness. It's just, I don't know. You just complain a lot. Punitive, you're punitive, you're complaining. Then you got next 125, denying yourself, denying others, denying what's good, denying God, denying, you know, and all you care about is just, I got to get what I want, desire. You're disappointed, craving. You feel enslaved. You feel enslavement. And then 150 is there's the anger. So now oddly, you're in the yellow section now. So it's red, orange, now you're
Red
in
is
yellow.
danger, danger.
Yeah, so now you're in yellow and now you're in anger. And believe it or not, people consider it to be okay. You're moving up. You're moving up. You're finally getting some fight back in you.
You're out of apathy. You're out of hopelessness.
Yes, and now you got a little fight in you, and you maybe have some hate still. It shows it in this level. Aggression, you're
Little
aggressive,
courage comes in.
you're antagonistic, and you're vengeful, but you got some fight back in you, okay? And then it goes up to indifferent, demanding, pride. Well, pride's better than anger. You start moving, you got a little pride. It's not it's not the right kind of pride, but it's pride. You feel some scorn, and you feel that you start feeling this inflation. And then next level up, 200, permitting. So you permit things. You don't accuse all the time. You permit others to be wrong. You start to even yourself. Feasible, courage, affirmation, empowerment. So that is beginning the upward. Now it's got an arrow down and up on this one, but it's beginning to be where you're moving up into the other things of loving, love, reverence, forgiveness, transcendence, intention, trust, release, neutrality, hopefulness, and and I don't know, good things, joy, serenity, all these reverent, all these wonderful things. You start moving up, and so anyway, that's because you're starting to let go and trust life, trust God, trust the universe, trust that people are essentially good, trust yourself. You know what I mean?
And you got to kind of move into that. And that's what I liked about Hawkins, because, he says at one point he went through an atheist moment,
Yes, he did.
and and then as he had his spiritual experience of surrender, he went through alcoholism and some things where they were out of his control. They were out of the control of the mind being able to fix, you know what I mean? And so he realized that there was a power beyond the mind. And how he figured that out was, he said that when nobody would take him into the 12 steps, he said that he surrendered. He said, "To thee, O Lord, I give you into my hands."
Into your
And
hands. Give myself
that's
into your
when he
hands.
said his life changed. That's when he started writing all the books. It was when God reorchestrated all his mind. But it was a heart cry. It was a deep, deep heart cry. And I've said in one of my books, I think it's Surrender, The Key to the Kingdom Within. It talks about the Israelites being in bondage under Pharaoh, making bricks. And I said, what got them out? And I said, it was a heart cry. They wanted to come out from pounding bricks and making bricks. And remember, Pharaoh made it twice as hard. He made them make it out of straw or something that was even more work. And
He took away the straw.
doubled their load.
Really heavy.
Yeah. And so they cried out, and it said their voice was heard in the heavenlies. It said the Father heard their cry in heaven.
Yeah.
And so that's a heart cry. That's not the cry of, I want this and I want it now. A heart cry is really, God help me. I want to be right. I want to be made whole. I want to be made new. So there's a difference in a manufactured, just crying out force, right? I want this. I'm going to coerce God. I'm going to twist his arm. I'm going to promise him this. I'm going to do all, it's a total humility. And a lot of your spiritual teachers talk about humility. They talk about, you've got to be humble. You've got to humble yourself before the Lord, right? And he will exalt you. So Hawkins' teaching was that when he surrendered, when he said, God help me, your will be done, Lord. Your will be done in me, not my will. Now I want to change it off. This is where my will's got me: drinking, worrying, about this, stuck in addiction. So he said, God help me. He said, God help me. And when he did, he said all of a sudden his life changed. Well, later he got into kinesiology, which we talked about in our last show, which is muscle testing, right? Because there's an energy field in our bodies.
It's my understanding that he invented it.
No,
No,
he studied under a guy.
Oh, good
He
to
talks
know.
about it in this book. If you read this book, he talks about this major study under this guy.
And also transcending levels of consciousness.
Yeah,
too.
he kind of furthered the work. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
This guy
got it.
started it, and then Hawkins says, hey, there's something here,
Yeah.
because we are energy, right? And there's energy around us, like say, if you walk into a store, you feel all the energy of the people if you're an empath. So we're filled with energy, good energy or negative energy, or a mix of both. And so anyway, what was I going to say about the energy? in people.
I don't know, but I just want to say one thing is that, in the churches and things where the ways that we've been raised, we feel like we're told to do this, told to do that. And then when things don't work out in our lives, we think, oh, it's because I didn't do this or I didn't do that. And so there's always a sense of that. I'm a little bit angry with God because I'm trying. I'm trying. Why can't you just bless me anyway? And why is everything just always going wrong in my life? God must be mad at me. My dad used to always feel that way, like God is he's this bad thing happened to us because I didn't pay my tithe, my 10%, or because I broke the Sabbath day and I had to do a little bit of things we're not supposed to be doing on that day. Or oh my God, there's a little bit of pork in those beans. Or God's not happy and he's not going to bless me. So we kind of get stuck, we don't want to surrender because we think that, somehow it's all up to us because we're taught that everything is up to us. It's my, forcing myself, right, the thing here, forcing myself to do what it is God wants me to do. And then when I do a little bit wrong and things don't go right, I think, oh, it's me. I'm not loved. God's not happy with me. And we get stuck, we don't want to surrender to this mean, mad God. But it isn't like that.
No.
The truth is we have been taught wrong. That's the real truth.
Yeah. And so the teaching and the understanding and the believing in what we were taught created the energy field, right? If you feel God's angry and jealous and he's going to kill everybody who don't know his name or believe like somebody else, then that creates fear in us, right? If we believe that's the way God is, he's watching every food you eat. He's watching every drop of bacon you eat. He's watching that you don't do this and do that and jump up and down and do all this stuff. Then we're afraid of God and we're always in fear for our life, which is not good. And so Dr. Hawkins, I remember what I was going to say, when he got the help that he needed, when 12 steps wouldn't take him, nobody would take him. And he realized there was a surrender. He says, I really wonder if there's this power greater than me, which came out of the 12 step, the power greater than me that could restore me to sanity. So he cries out from the depth of his being, God, help me. God, help me out of this mess I'm in. God, help me. If anybody can help me, it's got to be you. And he had a spiritual experience. Well, later on, after he studied the kinesiology and the muscle testing, he decided to ask what that is. And if you don't know what that is, look online. It's a little bit of to do to explain it all. But basically, your body can measure energy. I'll just give you one example. I saw in a seminar, and it was with Dr. Wayne Dyer. He had somebody come up out of the audience, and he handed him an envelope. And he held the envelope, and he said, hold it next to your heart. The guy held it next to his heart. He goes, okay, resist. And it was strong, And he hands him another envelope, and he says, put this on your chest. He says, now resist. And his arm went weak. And he gives him the other envelope, and his arm goes strong, it won't go down, and he gives him the other envelope and he puts it on his arm, just goes down like it was nothing. And so he asked the guy, he said, let's take a look at the one that went like this, that made you go weak. See, going weak is in that lower astral. That's the lower nature. That's something that makes your body sickly, right? Disease or whatever. So he opens up so he opens up the envelope that made his arm like rubber, right? Just like this, right? And what he found in it was saccharin. They put in there sweetener, artificial sweetener, and it had saccharin in it. And he goes, wow. He goes, see, you didn't even know. And then he took the other envelope and he opened it up, and it was pure vitamin C. And that made him go strong. And so he's like, see how you didn't know, but yet the hidden determinants of human behavior were still having an effect on you, right? And so
in your body somehow.
Yeah, your body knows. That's why he said you could do this. So we really got fascinated with this. He used it to measure countries and books. He calibrated
Leaders,
all kinds of books. What is it called?
religions.
The book called Truth versus Falsehood. There's a book called Truth versus Falsehood where he measures countries,
different Bibles, different religions,
different books, anything.
So many things.
It goes. You would love the book.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Because, like, I'll give you an example. Like he would say over in this one country, their consciousness is 400, which is not authentic, not integral. It's way down, right? It's selfish. It's all about me. Like an example, like he says, they're thinking about how do we blow up a busload of kids, or a busload of seniors, and we're giving them $20 billion, right? He was like, how do we give unconsciousness that kind of money with the idea that they're going to pay us back? See, that's ridiculous. So the book is filled with consciousness so you could understand the nature, not judge, but understand the nature of people and where they're at so that you could be helpful. The Bible says if you hang with a fool, you'll fare badly. If you hang with somebody that's a downer, a lot of times they'll bring you down, right? Or if you hang with people that are up and support you, then you'll become up. So anyway, he measured that surrendered state. He said, what in the hell was that? They spun me up on my head, flipped me around 360, and changed my whole life all around to where I was writing all these books. And what he found out, he said it was the glance of an archangel. So when he cried out, the Bible says, I have angels going to and fro through the earth looking for people who are broken,
Whose
people
hearts
that are
turned towards God.
yeah, that says, God,
Help me.
I've done a hell of a
Help me.
job on my life here. I don't know if I can be repaired. And God takes great pride in repairing us. And so anyway, so he cries out, he said it was a glance of an archangel. So he's like, wow, this surrender is powerful. He said, let's muscle test it and see what surrender, what the attractor field for surrender is. And so he goes,
What is that?
it's over 800.
Wow.
And so, which is God's will be done. Surrendering to God's will be done in my life as opposed to Dan's will.
Yeah.
God's will be done is 800. My will be done is it's God knows where I'll take myself. You know what I mean? Not that I'm not intelligent, not that I'm not, but I think a lot of things are beyond the mind. It's been brainwashed and thinks it knows what it needs and wants. I could be thinking I want $1 million, and God said, well, actually, you need vitamin C or you're going to be dead tomorrow. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Angela hands me a handload of vitamin C, and I'm like, what's this for?
Or there's a whole bunch of things you need to learn before we can actually open up that door, or it will be a flop. It's like if you're really, really tuned into what God wants in your life, and if that's what you feel that He's given you to dream, then He's going to have to take you down a lot of roads to get you ready for that, so that you can handle it. I don't know. It's important.
That's right. And so this book just walks you through it. This book walks you through the difference between power versus force. And it's beautiful because you don't have to force. You can actually have an intention, but allow God to work out the details. This is my intention for a better life. I think I need a wife. And here's why. I think I need this. I think I need a house. Maybe you don't need a house. Houses are a lot of work. You can think I need a house, but you're 75 years old and you get a house and it's full of yard work and weeds and trees and you're trimming all the time and crawling around and the house needs painting. The house needs a water heater. Maybe you don't need a house. So God's will be done is very powerful.
Jesus even said that thy will be done, not mine.
Yes. He might have thought he should have lived a little longer. He preached for 3 years, 3.5 years. So he might have thought, well, God, you just taking me out of here when I'm at my peak. I want to, give me 20 years, it was this time, And so this scale here is a really wonderful, this is a tool. This is a tool. This is not an end all either. This is not a religion. This is a tool, a beautiful tool that you can reflect on and you can say, I'm here. Well, what I've learned from Dr. David R. Hawkins and Angela is how we get out of the attractor field is a lot of times the attractor field becomes painful. We don't always have to rescue people out of an attractor field. Sometimes they like it. Victims like being victims, trust me. Like my spiritual teacher, Dr. Leland Kaiser, he used to say, oh God, don't take away their story. He was a teacher in Boulder, PhD, and he said, oh God, don't take a victim's story. God knows what'll happen to you. They'll fight you to the ground, And so that's what's beautiful is when you see these things, what Hawkins says is you could say, God, help me, Lord. I'm angry. I'm very angry. I'm disappointed. I just lost my wife. I just lost my kids. Me and Angela both been through it. We've been married a long time. Angela was almost married 25 years. I was married 17 years. And, we were abandoned, if you will. And it was a freaky thing. You could be mad at God for a while. You could say, God, why did you do this? Why did you allow me to get deceived? Why did you take my kids? Why haven't I talked to my kids in years? Why did you make me a Jehovah's Witness where my family and me don't ever have connection again? Why? Or you can take this time and look at some of Hawkins' work and say, wait a minute, I can escape being a victim. I can escape sadness. I can escape hopelessness. I can escape depression. And I can cry out to a living God that's living. We're part of that living God and say, I need a little help here. And that's what Hawkins said. Now, on that scale, 200 is where we start going strong, right? So if you can imagine 200, he said 1 point, 201, he said was very powerful.
Mm,
220 was a lot more power. And then he said 300,
wow.
300 was tremendous power. 400 is incredible. That's all the knowledge.
Yeah,
And
350 has forgiveness. And,
yes,
so
takes a lot of power to forgive.
it's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, forgive your
Yeah.
religion, forgive your abusive husband, forgive your abuser. That's
But first you got to
powerful.
forgive yourself.
Yes.
So we're learning. That's step one. Number one is forgive self, because you cannot extend forgiveness if you don't even forgive yourself. You don't have it within you. You don't have enough power to extend that forgiveness because you hate yourself. You haven't forgiven yourself.
Yes. And so as you move up that scale, you move into lovingness. What's interesting about love is boy, that's a tremendous amount of power. And I'll tell you, love is a field that moves through you, right? Love is like non-tangible. Love, the feeling you have for your wife and she has for you. What is that feeling? What is it?
How about just that
I
life?
wish I could contain it, bottle it up, Go ahead. What were we gonna
Just have a sense that everything is okay, and that life is good, and you find yourself saying, "Oh, I just love that," or "Oh, I just love those birds. Oh, I just love that sky this morning. Oh my God, it's so beautiful." Or, "Oh, I just love those people are so kind." And you just have this feeling inside of you of love. That's what's natural. "Oh, I just love that cat. That cat brings me so much happiness." Or, "Oh, I just love to hang out in my backyard, in my garden." I don't know. But you get in this love space, and it's all is well. It's all is well. I used to not really know what love was, and I thought love was sex, actually. And then I discovered that they're two separate things entirely. And that's an interesting thing to discover.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Because the way I was taught was not quite right about what love
we're all
was.
kind of taught that. Love is sex,
Yeah, yeah.
but
Sexual attraction and all of that. That's
yeah,
not what love is.
yeah,
And so, think about your children, your brand new born baby that you're holding, or your grandchild for the first time, and that feeling that comes in your heart. That's pure love. I remember when somebody said to Dan had his wife left him in a really crazy way. It was very painful. And so he was just really down. And his friend said, "Dan, you need to get with your kids so that you can remember what love is
yep.
again." And so they got in his truck, I think it was, and drove all the way to 600 miles to go and remember what love was
Be
and
with
hold
my
those girls.
daughters, yeah. And that they're just loving you unconditionally. They just love you for you. They're not wanting anything but dad. Yeah, and that was a beautiful thing. That was great advice.
Yeah, it
So
really
you know
was.
what love is, that it's not abuse, it's not a pretty woman, because the girl I was dating was pretty and yeah, and all that, but that wasn't what love was. It was actually kind of harsh.
And love is power. So love, again, he says love just is. So in that situation, love just is. Dan just naturally has a love for these kids.
That's
And
God's love for us. He just loves his kids.
there you go. And so, anyway, there's no conditions on that love.
No. And another hope that love holds out that I loved, as you start reading these, there's a book called Transcending Levels of Consciousness. That's another one of Dr. David
Oh
R.
yeah, talk
Hawkins.
about that one.
Well, he walks you from from here, from the bottom on up, and he does a discussion. He's like, okay, if you're here, here's going to be a discussion. Here's what that looks like. And then he says, and then we're going to talk about a possible solution, to move you up here, or invite you to maybe look up here to the next level of understanding or awakening, or maybe I want to stop hanging out here and I want to see what this one looks like. Well, when you're in the 400s, you are pretty much intellectual. You intellectualize everything you've studied.
Logic,
You've got
reason.
wisdom. Not wisdom, maybe understanding. I'll say understanding. Wisdom is what the understanding it, fulfilled or something.
Yeah, yeah.
It's the next
It's
step.
real to you.
Yeah, it's learning,
Experiential.
experiential. And so the 500s, when I started reading the 500s, and you want to read that in his book, Transcending Levels of Consciousness. As you start to read 500, it sounds so beautiful, don't it?
Love is
Love
there.
becomes harmonious. Your
Amazing.
life becomes harmonious. It becomes less effort, more effortless. It's not pushing anymore, driving. You surrender into that your life was ordained by God, that God has a plan for you. You're morphing into that plan. You're morphing into that idea, and you're surrendering into not knowing. And it's okay. I want this, but I really don't know what I need, so to speak, right? I'm not saying you're totally not left-brained. You totally don't know anything with your left brain. I'm just saying this is the combination of the right brain and the left brain, which he talks about. I want to just say that in the beginning of this book, he says that the left brain alone is logic and reason. And he said that that's like low speed internet. I want to just really bring this up. He said that logic and reason is low speed internet.
Interesting.
It's based on what you've known from a child. It may not be true.
All your programming.
It's
right?
all your programming, it's your education, it's all the things you learn, and it's not all bad. Not everything your mom and dad told you is bad. Not all your things you learned in school and high school is bad. But nevertheless, it's a program. And so what was I going to say about
They
that?
move up to the 500.
Yeah. And so anyway, I lost my thought there.
I think it was.
So he was talking about how do you hyper speed that? And so he was saying that surrender is where you come to a point of I don't know, like when tragedy happens in life. My kid just got run over with a car. I don't know anymore. I had all the answers at one time. I don't now. If I get cancer or end up in a hospital, I had all the answers I don't have now. I just lost my wife and jobs, right? I knew everything. I had everything going for me. I don't know now. Everything's upside down. It just seems like it's all gone. And so that's when you finally cry out. Up to that point, you're kind of playing God. You know, you got the left brain going, you're figuring everything out, you're solving all the solutions. But there's a time in our life where problems might be beyond our perception or beyond our knowing. So Hawkins said, when you say, God, help me, actually the left brain morphs in with the right brain. And Jesus talked about that. He said, when the two become one, the eye becomes single and the whole body becomes bright. And so,
So you're in the middle place, really.
yes,
You know, both logic and reason and creativity and sensitive to the spiritual things and creative. And so they're meeting in the middle, male and female, if you will, too, yin and yang.
yep,
In the middle place.
yep. So Hawkins said you move from low speed internet to high speed internet. That should be exciting.
Wow, just from what?
Low speed internet
Love
to
it.
high speed internet, just by saying, I need a little help from the spirit world. I need a little help from God. I need a little help from my angel, whatever. I need some help. And you'll get that help. He said that's the merging of the right and left brain. He spells it out right in the beginning of that book. I remember he shows a diagram and it's like a line, and then it goes like this, like into a computer. And he said low speed internet. And then he's got this line up here, surrendering to God's will. And it goes into high speed internet. So right from the beginning of the book, it tells us how to move from slow speed to God speed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And God's idea. And so when you move when you go from 400, which is intellectual, live of left brain, when you go from intellectual into a surrendered state, into I'm going to trust God. God obviously has a plan for me. I wouldn't be here. I chose to come here, whatever it is, right? And so we surrender into some unknowingness, right? In that unknowingness, he said, there's and it's moving into this trusting and this unknowingness. There's power. It's like the weight's off our shoulders. We're not carrying this big baggages of I should have known. I should have did this better. If only I'd invested in this thing. If only I would have done, figured it all out. It's a big load to let off. It's like entering the rest. The Bible has a scripture about entering the rest where you can just rest in the arms of God and God will hold you. That's what the 500s is like. And if you read it, it will be very enticing to you. And I'll tell you why it's enticing, because it speaks to the soul that knows the truth. The soul knows the truth of who you are, right? The soul resonates with love. God is love. You're part of God. So it resonates with it. So when you read it, you go, oh, I want that. I want that lovingness. I want that more than anything. Now that you have an intention and a willingness for love, to be a part of that love, to share that love, to breathe in that love, to walk in that love. God gives you more love because love is not of this world. That's why it says the fruits of the Spirit are love, joy, kindness, goodness, faith,
Peace.
mildness, self-control. See, these are non-linear, right? The other ones are jealousy, anger, it's all this lower energy. So to get the higher energy, we surrender to God's will be done in my life. This is the house of God, right? People have that in their house. This is the house of God. And we choose to partner with that. And in that, we move into this lovingness. God gives us more of this love freely, fills us with love to where we're a cup overflowing, right? And we're able to now share the love because we know we're loved. We know God loves us. We know we don't have to carry the load. We've entered the rest. People see you and they go, man, they're at peace. Wow, they love each other. Wow, their cup runneth over. I wonder why. And it's because we've learned from a lot of Dr. David R. Hawkins about this scale, the hidden determinants to human behavior. We've actually put a light on what's keeping us stuck, what's keeping us held, what's keeping us bound. What is it? Oh, I didn't know I was a victim. I didn't know I was angry over time. I didn't know I was. And so he puts a light on it. And then, like I said, in the Transcending Levels of Consciousness book from Dr. David R. Hawkins at Veritas Publishing, you can get that. It breaks it all down. But I'll tell you, when you start reading 500, he talks about you're in a miracle world there. Miracles happen spontaneously. And he also said when you move up in it, now you can actually move up into 520, 540, 560. And I think he said 540 is where the healing arts begin. Think about that. The healing arts, meaning Jesus said, I do nothing from my own initiative, but only from the will of God that flows through me, right? And so because Jesus was in such a lovingness state that he loved all of mankind, he said he died for the world, right? To bring in this understanding so that we could connect with God in a beautiful way, that we wouldn't fear God. My God is love. God is love. Go help a man, give a man a hand up, do this, do that. So he was so filled with love that was God's love, right? He was a container for it. And so because he was a container for God's love, he just showed up and people healed just by being in his presence. Like Mother Teresa, they said when they showed up around Mother Teresa, colds would disappear.
David Hawkins, he was a doctor in LA, right?
New York.
San Diego?
New
New
York.
York. Oh, okay, New York. I didn't know that. So he was a very good doctor and wealthy. He lived in extremely
New Jersey or New York, but it was back there somewhere.
He was very wealthy, very, very nice home. But then he took on all the diseases of all the people because he was so empathic. And then that's where he went, where he was drinking because he can't handle it. And the next thing you know, he's needing to go to 12-step. Then he got so angry and belligerent and frustrated. I'm sure angry at God, you know it. Became atheist. And they wouldn't take him. He was that awful. And so then he had nowhere to go. And then he cries out to God. And then God starts building him up, showing him the right way. This is how life goes. It's like flow, right? Things go up, things go down. But he had to go from wealthy, thinking I've got it all, and everybody loves me, and I'm helping everybody. And he was a great doctor, really good. But he took on all the diseases till he had everything wrong with him physically. And that made him miserable to the point where he couldn't handle life. So then God had to show him another way. So eventually he cries out to God, God help me. And then God begins to show him what it is that he's needing, that he's lacking, logic and reason and how to do great and mighty things, logic and reason and reasoning, science, medicine, all of that. But that stuff didn't work. That was the 400s.
That's good, yeah.
And needed to go higher to really get the happiness because money doesn't always satisfy.
No.
Having everything you want does not satisfy. So somebody said the other day that the rich people in the world have just the same kinds of problems as the poor people. The same. They're just a little bit different, but they're the same kind of crap, the same fear. They have fear about this and that, the other thing, anxiety. They have to,
thinking about how do I hang on to my money now that God.
Yeah. So
that's a big burden.
But I was going to mention, Paul is a perfect example. If you don't mind my going in the Bible realm, I kind of like to reflect on stories. But Paul, he was a good man who was trying to do everything perfectly right. He's going to get to God by rules and regulations and obedience and a law and obeying the law. And then all of a sudden, God Probably because God knew, I feel like this. I feel like God knew that his heart was, I want to be perfect and I want to be pure. And I really do I want you to be proud of me, God. I want you to love me, God. I really do feel that he felt this way. And all of a sudden, boom, this light hits him and he's blinded and he gets talked to from heaven. Why are you persecuting me and my people? Jesus says, who are you, Lord? I'm Jesus that you're persecuting. And then he has to go blind, led by his servant, all the way back to the town where they came from, into a home, still blind, 3 days blind, until finally, bottom line, he begins to discover the truth about things. And he didn't begin really doing his ministry for 14 years. It said that God taught him, he was being taught all that time by God to undo. And what he said was, I had to undo what I learned. So it wasn't that it was a throwaway, because God, it says that God turns all things together for good. Okay, so nothing is wasted, but he had to unlearn that heavy hand that I'm loved by God only if and when, and there's grace. And he had to learn all these different ways of seeing everything, like starting over. But see, probably because he really, really, really wanted to know God, and God knew it, then God gave him this opportunity. It was, okay, then, dude, we're going to have to, burn down this structure, burn down this temple of yours, and we're going to rebuild with the right God,
There you go.
with the right truth, with, with surrender, with my will be done, God's will be done, not mine. All of that he had to change. There's so much change. I think he did a
Yeah.
pretty good job.
Yeah,
I
and I
think he
think
did a pretty good
Angela made a
job.
good
God did a
point.
good job.
Yeah, I think all of these things here, these can be temples. These could all be houses we live in,
Oh yeah.
right?
Yeah.
If we're a victim, I mean, we're living in homes down here. So if we're going to move up, if we're going to get into fresh air, if we're going to get into life and having life abundant and peace and joy,
Meaningfulness and
then we've got to, like Angela said, this temple has to come down, and that's what happened to Paul. He surrendered that temple, killing Christians, having Christians killed, whatever he did. So that's where we want to move out of. So anyway, I think that's what do you think?
how about wraps it up? Did I get for
Yeah.
today, Dan?
Yeah, so check out some of his materials. They're life-changing. It's not a religion. It's something to reflect on. If you resonate with it, check it out. Check out some of his books. They're a world of knowledge. And to think that that didn't happen, I want to say this about the 500s, again, just about those healing arts. A lot of people want to become healers. They want to become, different things, Reiki, different things. But Hawkins talks about this energy of love as it continues to come forth. This healing will be autonomous. Yeah, it'll just be like that. I was at a conference not long ago, and there was so much love there. There was so much beauty there. There was so much wonderfulness there. I got a healing just being in that environment.
Something that had been a problem for a long time.
Yeah, I was
Lot of
healed
pain.
just like that, just like that. And it was the energy of the group in there, the group, the lovingness of the
was.
group. And so what Hawkins saying is powerful. The healing arts start in the 540s, and then sainthood in the 560s. And it's like where you're just allowing the pure love of God to flow through you. And the energy field that you're in, you don't even have to say anything. And people are healed just being in your presence. People are healed being in the presence of God, really, because it's God through you. That's why Jesus said, I do nothing of my own initiative, not even I am good, but the Spirit of the Lord is good that's flowing through me. That's what's powerful. And I and that Father are one, and you two can be one too. As I am in union with the Father, and the Father's in union with me, that you would come into union with us. So this is what Dr. Hawkins is talking about, really coming into divine union. And go ahead.
Can I talk about just one more thing? I just thought about
absolutely.
this.
Yes.
But okay, so I hope you don't mind. I know we've used this example before, but it's really good for this.
Yeah.
But Dan and I were trying to find a home, and we were not finding it. And it was just discouraging. We had quite a little list of things we really, really wanted for very specific reasons. And it just wasn't happening. And so we finally just said, you know what? We are just fighting this thing. We're just going to let go. We're going to stop looking. And we're going to pick it up maybe in October when things start to slow back down, school starts. It's winter starting to, we'll try again, because the competition was incredible. And it wasn't everything we wanted
Houses
either.
were gone just like that.
Yeah, it was an awful time to be buying. And so we just said, stop, just stop. So we did. And then my sister said that same day, Angela, I bought two of my homes, they were rental homes. She said, I bought them on Craigslist. And I'm like, oh gosh, I used to be in real estate. I think Dan said in the beginning. And so I knew that people who sold on Craigslist, in my opinion, at that time, they were greedy, they were asking too much money, they were unreasonable. It was a crappy house usually. And I know because we used to go and try to, get those listings once in a while. And it was just always ridiculous. So, oh my God, a stupid idea. But Dan says, I'm going to check. So he gets on there and Craigslist, looks for the homes in the areas we were looking at. And sure enough, oh goodness gracious, we have a strange cat in our home. Very weird. But anyway, so he looks in the Craigslist, and sure enough, there is this house, and it had everything that we wanted, everything. It was crazy. In fact, more. And we're like, no way. And so Dan says to calls the lady up and goes, is this real? This is surely a scam.
Yeah.
And she's like, no, it's real. It's like, okay, give me the address. And we went right away to the house, and somebody else was here already looking at it from the outside. And we're like, oh my God, this is it. And so we wrote an offer right away. And believe it or not, we were the first offer in. And even though we were not a cash offer, and there were three others behind it that were cash offers, because ours was the highest offering of money, they took ours and said, okay, it's yours. If, just don't let anything go wrong. And the insurance, well, it was ours. And I still can't believe it, but we gave up. We surrendered to, I don't know where our home is, but I know that you do. And Dan had said, Lord, I don't know where the right woman is for me. I'm looking in all the wrong places, but I know that you do. And I surrendered to you. So that is what happened. And he found me in a short order. And this home we found immediately upon saying, I surrender. So just that power, power just is. God's love is what you need is. It's already there.
So
And
I want
the
to
house
say
was
this.
there. I was there. And then,
And I want to say this, we entered the rest.
yeah.
We just said, we're done looking. Because everything we looked at fell through.
He found me same way.
Yeah.
Like, I'm done looking.
I'm done looking.
I don't know what to do.
I don't know where she's
So I
at.
just
I don't
wanted
know
to,
where.
yeah.
That's a great,
Yeah,
great
so-
illustration. And I want to say this, the house was everything that we did the affirmations for. Yeah, I know.
Our house crazy.
The affirmations were, boy, we'd sure like to have a fireplace because we want to be self-sufficient. It'd be sure nice to have a well in case things go out. It'd sure be nice to have, this
It
and
went
that.
on and on.
Detached garage, because Dan sprays lacquer sometimes and it stinks up the house. If you're in a garage that's connected to the house, the furnace will bring it through the house. And so we had like a list, we didn't want to drink the water.
Oh yeah, the water where we used to live.
horrible.
Oh,
It was horrible. It's so much chlorine in it.
It's ridiculous.
And so we were putting all these things out, right? You don't think they're going anywhere, right? They're going out in the universe, you're praying. But then, like Angela said, we let go. We just said, God, we're going to just let go here and let you kind of figure everything out. And sure enough, it was just right away. Boom, there was the house.
Yeah.
There was Angela, and lived happily ever after.
Well, every life has problems, okay? It's not like we don't have problems. People, we're supposed to have problems, guys. We're taught in the churches that everything's supposed to be beautiful and wonderful and perfect so long as you're obedient and obey God, and then everything will be perfect. Guess what? That was never promised in the Bible. That is a lie. We're supposed to have problems. That's how we grow. If we don't have any problems, there's no growth. So it's stupid to think that's supposed to be that way. That's not the plan.
That's right. That's
Anyway,
right.
So.
But anyway, good discussion, guys.
Yeah.
Check out some of the stuff. You can go online. You can go on YouTube. You can see a lot of Dr. Hawkins. He does little snippets, little 5-10 minutes, sometimes 15-minute little snippets, and you can get a sense of who he is. He does the scale quite a bit.
Yeah.
And you can learn a lot. But our intention is spiritual discoveries, guys, so that a lot of people might not know about these things. You wonder, why are people happy? Why are they joyful? Why are they prospering? Why are they doing good? And it's because of things like this. These are the nuggets that Angela and I got out of a lot of studies, a lot of 20 years of studying and reading and turning over rocks and not being afraid to look at spiritual things. And because of that, you will find happiness. Keep knocking and it'll be open, right?
Right, exactly right. I mean, tomorrow, something crazy could happen and change it all for Dan and I. But I really do believe that should that happen, if we keep our focus on that God loves me and he's got my best interest at heart. We were listening to this guy. He said that he'd gone into the forest with these other younger people, and they were learning, and for 6 months, and they came back to where they had left from, and it was all gone. It was like, I don't know if it got burned down or what, but the boys were like, if we were really obeying God, then why did he allow this to happen? But the guy got on his knees and thanked God. And they're like, what? Weird. And then they went to sleep on the ground, and during the night it rained. And the guy got up and he thanked God. He praised God that you know what's best for me, Lord, because he's trying to grow him spiritually, right? And do we give thanks in all things? Well, he was at that point in spirituality where that's where he was needing to go. And so I'm sure those boys were like, what? And, with a good attitude, God's going to turn it all around. Something wonderful was about ready to happen.
Oh, yeah.
Some bigger building was going to be built. I don't know, but another big opportunity where they're going to travel, and the needs were going to be met for the boys, the young boys. They were going to learn what they were there to learn. If we just trust the path and not be afraid of it, and just be willing to not force, but when those things happen, go with the flow and trust God, no matter how horrific it seems, then he will turn it for good. But if we get bitter and angry and resentful and hateful, then it's not going to go well. It could go from bad to worse. So we got to be careful on our attitudes when we're being tested. It's weird. Now our cat's in here with this other cat, like they're in love or something. Very strange. Anyway, okay, we're gonna let you go.
All right,
But
guys, thanks for tuning in.
thank
And we will
you.
see you next week at 10 o'clock, Sunday morning.
Yep.
And we love sharing with you, and we love sharing what we've learned. And if you want to join in, the link is always in the post. It's right there lit up. All you do is hit it. And I don't always have time to send it out to each person individually, but it's always right there lit up and illumined, and you tap it and you're on, and you
Yep.
can share your thoughts.
And
We'd
Life
love to
After
hear your
Religion
thoughts.
Facebook page, and Angela's Inspirations Facebook page.
Yep.
Ex Worldwide Truth Seekers Facebook page, Art of Healthy Relationships Facebook page, all of which you can find the link. We always put it the day before, sometimes in the morning, so you can find that link and click on it and get to this show. Okay. All right.
All right.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for listening.
All right.
We wish you the
That's good.
best. God bless you.
God bless you. Thanks.
Bye-bye.